Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Self-Care Oasis podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Gregory, the Self-Care Alchemist, and I help women transform burnout into better boundaries, more balance and bliss. And I also do that with wonderful guests like the guest I have today, Dr. Nikki Coleman. She is here to talk about pleasure, one of my favorite topics. And so I welcome you, Dr. Nikki. Thank you for being on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Samantha. I love the title of self-care alchemist. I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you. It has been a
Yes.
journey that I've gone through, and I just really love guiding women who are currently in the trenches of burnout to come out of it in whatever way it looks for them. So,
Yeah.
this topic today, we're talking about integrating pleasure into your life as a form of self-care. And before, I would love you to share with our audience who you are, what you do, and how you are making a vast difference in the world.
Yes. So I am a licensed psychologist. I'm a sexologist. My primary focus is my private practice that I work with high achieving Black women. I can get into more about why specifically focusing on that niche. And the work is always around relational and sexual well-being. And of course, that includes trauma recovery, as well as sex education, as well as pleasure coaching. So it's the wide range of things. And I love the work that I do. I love being a Black woman. I believe Black women are the highest expressions of humanity. And I think that the work that I do is sacred and that I get to share in some of the most tender and vulnerable spaces with other Black women and help navigate them through to lives that are better aligned with who they are, what they want for themselves, that center joy and pleasure unapologetically.
This is a great start. I mean, I think we have so many avenues to go into, but I just love the fact that you are focused on Black women because I think, like you said, we are the highest expression, but society tries to bring us down to the lowest level. And I think
Everyone.
yes, everyone tries to bring us down to the lowest level. And I
Yes.
find that so ironic. I mean, so I think we could talk about why that is and how we have been given the narratives and the programming, the conditioning to always be trying to prove ourselves that we're worthy.
Well, for me, I think that the answer is simple as to why. I think because if we are allowed to set the standard, everyone else has to rise to our standard.
Right.
And it's a really high standard. Even when we
Mhm.
regular, we're not.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so to think about white supremacy, the paradox is there's an inherent understanding and knowing that they are not the the ideal race, right? But they've
Hmm.
sold that narrative in order to
Hmm.
have power and control. And so I think when you intersect patriarchy and race, and you have Black women on the other end of that continuum, then the pushback and all of the socialization,
Hmm.
all the actual like systemic reinforcement around keeping us contained, keeping us small, keeping us oppressed makes perfect sense, right? From a very twisted and distorted logic, right? A
Right.
very unhealthy spiritual framework, but
Hmm.
that's what sort of how I make sense of it. And I said everybody when you said not everybody, but I said everybody because a lot of the work that I do for myself and that
Hmm.
I do with my clients is that we have internalized a lot of it. We have experienced growing up in context with other Black women that have reinforced it for us. And so sometimes the work is learning about how we get out of our own way. Like how do we start to excise and divest from the narratives that we've internalized about ourselves that are not rooted in our best interest, right? I do think it's everybody that benefits from us not being at our best or keeping us small, keeping us contained, right? All the different ways that that shows up.
Absolutely. You are so on point, and especially with my own journey, I had to make a decision that I am not the negative connotations of a Black woman that people consistently try to project onto me and everyone around me. But I had to literally make a decision. That is not my identity
Mm-hmm.
because that's an identity that has been projected versus what I've chosen for myself. And I think so
Yes.
many Black women are going through that. We are at a crossroads, I think, right now,
Mm-hmm.
especially, the 92% who voted for Kamala and sitting down and not being in the forefront of all these different things that we had been in before for
Mhm.
whatever movement. Our
Right.
is no movement,
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
And it's
Figure
so
it out. Get
important.
somebody else to do it.
Exactly. But on the other side of that, while we're resting, while we're in the no movement phase, while we are negotiating our identity, as it were,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think that's where we have to, like I said, lay down the narratives, lay down the things that people have said we are, and
Mhm.
really decide who we remember, not decide, remember
Yeah.
who we
Yeah.
truly are. I think
Absolutely.
that's where
Yes.
we are now.
I think we're like, I still think we're in the beginning stages, but
Oh,
I've been
absolutely.
noticing this in my practice for a while. And
Hmm.
what I have described it as is our revolution is now an internal one, that
Hmm.
our ancestors, foremothers and forefathers, a lot of their revolution was external. If we think about civil rights movement, Black Power movement, in terms of getting us collective space and opportunity in the broader economic and social systems.
Hmm.
And now this generation, so I'm Gen X.
Right.
In my generation, I would say it's kind of half and half, but
Same.
certainly millennials, and then definitely the Gen Z baby. The process has been okay. We see what all the rewards are, and then we recognize that there is a lot of void. There's a lot of emptiness. There's a lot of superficiality or brittleness that
Hmm.
exists. Right. That the success and the achievement.
Right.
That's why I say high achieving. Right. The achievement is not all that it's cracked up to be, right?
Right.
And so we're doing that internal work with
Hmm.
self-care, with
Hmm.
therapy, with other healing modalities, such that we can then maximize all of the sort of material and like status access, but be able to do that with our full selves intact, or be
Hmm.
able to reclaim our full selves intact.
Absolutely. And it is work. And I think when I was going through my process, the healing process, it was all very heavy and
Mm,
it was kind of cloaked in the sadness and depression that I was trying to get out of, but still identifying with all that heaviness and to the point where, and I think that was just kind of part of the narrative again for Black women. It's like we're angry, we're tired, we're strong, we're
mhm,
all the things that are
mhm,
on a more low vibrational space.
mhm, mhm,
But then realized one day, I was like, I've never really enjoyed my life. I
mhm.
have not intentionally enjoyed my life and
Yes.
taken pleasure of it out of it and sucked all the pleasure that I could
Yes.
from life because
Yes.
I was never shown that. I
Yes.
was told that I had to, and I was told I was mean. I had to be, I was always very serious. I'm a no nonsense kind of person.
Mhm.
But it took me until I think it was in my late 30s that I figured out I even had a sense of humor, right? And that
Yes.
was, I felt so sad that it was took so long.
Mhm.
But that determination to start to enjoy life and really see that I have a right to enjoy life and it not have to be
Yes.
so serious, so
Yes.
down in the dirt. And so I know that's the main crux of this conversation
Yes. Yes. Yes.
is how to extract pleasure from life. What does it look like when you're in the healing space? And that it doesn't always have to be drudgery. It doesn't have to be so hard. There is a lot of joy that you can extract from it and pleasure that you can take out of it.
Yes, for sure. I have a quote that pleasure is a pathway to liberation.
Hmm.
Because of how Black women are socialized to work, to achieve, to be responsible, to give, to set aside our needs, to deprioritize rest, all the stuff that we think we have to do all the things and then we earn the
Right.
pleasure, right? And I want us to just completely flip that upside down
Hmm.
and say that when I center pleasure, what I really am doing is affirming my humanity,
Hmm.
my birth given right to have joy and to feel alive and to feel lit up in life. And the more that you work towards that being the priority, the harder it becomes for you to compromise, to
Hmm.
negotiate around your needs, because you can't do all of that spark. You can't feel light. You can't feel all the joy and pleasure. And the concept of pleasure for me is so expansive that
Mm.
I talk about it from like the simple pleasures all the way up through erotic pleasure, right? That there's
Mhm.
a whole continuum. And I want to live a life where I am able to pick a little bit of something off the menu at any point along the continuum, day in and day out. I don't want to have to compromise. I don't want to have to feel like I have to work for it. I don't want to feel like after then I get to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I agree wholeheartedly. I love that just, a pleasure menu. So, and I love the idea of becoming a pleasure princess, as it were. So, and
Mhm.
that being the default setting
Yes.
for Black women, so that
Yes.
we're not always the one carrying the heavy load, like these work mules that they have tried to make us into, but that we actually have whimsy and joy and we get to see every good
Yes.
thing that happens. And so, I mean, how would you suggest that a woman start to even play around with pleasure and
Yes.
give themselves permission to
Yes.
experience it?
Yeah. It really does start with slowing down and
Hmm.
tuning in.
Yes.
So much of the systems that we live in require us to sort of be on autopilot,
Hmm.
for us to just assume that the way things are or the way things have to be, right? That there isn't time. And so, what I always do with clients is ask them to start to slow down and tune in and realize how disconnected they actually are from their bodies. Because
Hmm.
and the power of pleasure, it is an embodied thing. It's a felt thing. It's not a thought, it's not a concept, it's
Hmm.
not a cognitive experience, it's a felt sense. And if you are disconnected, if you're numbed out, you're dissociating, you're on autopilot, whatever it is, then you are not able to connect with what are the things that you like or don't like, right? Just even that simple question.
Yeah.
And a lot of women don't have answers to that, right? And
Hmm.
there's this other sort of paradox with Black women where because we are expected to be so strong, even when we acknowledge our vulnerabilities, we have a hard time saying them out loud, right?
Hmm.
What do you
Hmm.
mean I'm not connected to my body? What do you mean? Like we like even just to be able to say, oh yeah, I don't know what I like really like, right? But that tuning in is really the simple place. And I like to encourage folks just to observe, like not move towards action, but to observe so that you can really get a much clearer sense of how many hours, like literally how much of your life is spent in responsibility, duty,
Hmm.
chore, task, right? And then the follow-up question is, does that feel like enough for you?
Hmm.
And usually, when you're able to slow down and really think about, the answer is no.
Right.
Like, no, like this can't be what I worked for, right?
Hmm.
And then I do really do encourage folks to start with the simple pleasures, right?
Hmm.
Being fully present in the moment, because that is when you're able to explore more, to have creativity, to be able to recapture those parts of yourselves. Like, what were the things that I used to do when I was little, right? Like,
Hmm.
so that slowing down and that tuning in and that recognizing how much of yourself you are compromising day in and day out is where it has to start.
Yes, and I think it's also important to differentiate between escapism and the pleasure you're trying to be
Yes.
inside of.
So when I think about escapism, I think about it as a tool. It's a way to manage
Hmm.
the burnout, the depression, the anxiety, the whatever. And when we're talking about being embodied and being present and experiencing pleasure, it's not in reaction to, it's a choice because
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
right? But that tuning in part is where you even get a more clear sense for yourself about what the distinction is about those two things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, like I said, definitely on point because escapism is kind of absent-minded behavior
Yes.
versus
Yes.
that in tune, let me reconnect with myself and pay attention
Yes.
in stillness first, and
Yes.
then let that pleasure kind of bloom from there. I
Do
love
you remember in the pandemic how people were struggling to not go out, to just be at home, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not everybody, but there were lots of
Yeah.
people who really struggled. And it wasn't necessarily like the loneliness part that was
Mm-hmm.
really true for some people, especially as things prolonged. But
Mm-hmm.
that first sort of like reactivity. And I think
Absolutely.
a lot of that was because it required people to slow down and be with themselves in a
Mm-hmm.
way that no other time in their lives had allowed them to do. And they didn't know what to do with all of that.
Right.
Like that's good. That can be really disorienting
Mhm.
if you don't have a set of practices and comfort and learning how to like sit in that discomfort. And I think that that's another way to sort of distinguish between
And
escapism
mhm.
and choosing pleasure, choosing joy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great example because I was personally thrilled that
Me
we
too.
I was so thrilled to be able to have that downtime and to be able to not be in that hurry, rush,
Yes.
daily grind. But I
Yes.
think a lot of people, because they're uncomfortable with just themselves and their own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
it made it so much harder because it was depressing for a lot of people.
Yes.
That's so sad, and I really felt bad, but I was just like, I'm just not there. I'm
Yeah. Yes.
very happy to be here.
Yes.
And I suppose even though people who more single, live by themselves, they probably had a harder time than people who
Mm-hmm.
had others around them as well.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I also brought out a lot of other interesting things, but I really like you mentioned that pleasure is a spectrum in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going from the simple pleasures to like medium type pleasure, I'm calling it medium
Yeah.
pleasures or midpoint pleasures, and then the erotic scale. I
Yes.
I'm just talking about the ways that we have tried to find joy and pleasure or to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy life or to have fun. I think that
Mm-hmm.
having
Mm-hmm.
fun is
Yeah.
also very different from joy and pleasure. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit about that?
Yes. So this is where I think this your concept of self-care even goes wrong, right?
Hmm.
When we start to really infuse, I'm gonna say capitalism, materialism,
Yes.
like things with
Consumerism.
with
Hmm.
the joy, then
Hmm.
you've gone awry,
Yeah.
right? And so, like as an example, I remember I remember this was like it's years ago, but I was like, I actually hate the nail salon. Like that is not a joy for me. Like it
Right.
stresses me out.
It's
This is
torture.
it is. And I'm like, why do we say getting your nails done is like self-care? That is not. No,
No.
right? So a lot of the medium stuff looks like the trip, the Instagrammable thing,
Hmm.
the brunch, right? It's an activity,
Yes.
right? And for me, although those things might be what brings you joy or
Hmm.
happiness, the likelihood that they are is probably low, or the benefit that they're giving you is probably low. For
Hmm.
like, I'll use myself as an example. I have become a plant mom, and
Mm.
I have all the plants. I was counting them last night, and like up to like 48 plants in my house.
Okay. Nice.
This is the worst lighting. This is all artificial light up here. But that is something that I spend money on, right? It's a task, but it lights me up. Like I
Mm.
talk to my plants. I love all the different ones that I have, the beauty of their leaves and their different colors and the tending to them. And I talk to them. And when I see a new leaf, it brings me joy. And being able to take care of them, that
Mhm.
is a moderate sort
Mhm.
of joy. It literally, I'm fully embodied. I have to be tuned in to like, how's the
Mhm.
soil? Are they not getting enough water? Oh, this light is like, I'm not, it's not for anyone else. There's no performance, right?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think that performance piece, that acting piece is how I like to distinguish between the fun
Mhm.
versus joy versus
Mhm.
happiness, pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that because I'm a spa girly. I love going to the spa. But
Mm-hmm.
I know specifically for me, going to the spa is not just about escaping my life, but it's
Mm-hmm.
about tuning into the healing modalities. Because I love sauna. I love the heat.
Yes.
And I feel the difference in my body when
Yes.
I get that heat in
Yes.
my bones, and I
Yes.
leave refreshed, I leave healed. And
Yes.
it's not a let's just go and do this for the sake of doing it.
Right.
being there because yes, I'm gonna, get some help, I mean some physical benefits,
Yeah.
but I also get to be in solitude. I also get to, just be present in the through, well, how's my life going? And not to ruminate or anything, but just being in gratitude for being in the
Yes.
space where I don't have to rush. I don't have
Yes.
to feel like there's something on a to-do list, my
Mm.
escape. And I like a Korean spa because I could be there for
Mm.
hours and get some good food
Yes.
and stuff.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
that to me is also a good difference
Yes.
between I'm there to extract an experience versus being embodied and it feel from it,
Yes. Yes.
So I think that like even mentioning trips, a lot of people go in there activity on top of activity on top of activity, and it's like it's draining. Why are you doing this?
It's
How
like,
is that
calm
fun?
down. Mm-mm. I was listening to you about your spa experience, and I love that that's your example because I do think people could say, "Oh, I go to the spa, I get a massage," but it
Right.
was how you described what your experience is
Mm-hmm.
that is what makes it the pleasure, right?
Right.
Is that it is bringing you more in alignment with yourself. It's bringing
Mm-hmm.
you in closer connection to the core of who you are. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
justified. There's no achievement, there's no outcome.
Right.
It is a moment for you to be you with you. And
Mm-hmm.
that is that embodiment, that alignment, that attunement
Mm-hmm.
is how you know it's pleasure versus fun, whatever, right? Like I like to go other places.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go other places. I hate traveling. I hate to get up in the morning. I hate the packing, the all the things, to get the Uber, to get the TSA, to get
Right.
on the crappy flights. That part I hate. I just started
Right.
saying, I don't, it's traveling. Y'all can keep that. But I like going other places. I have to keep that part in mind about what the benefit of what I'm getting to if I
Mm-hmm.
have to go through some yucky stuff. I think if you're doing it for the performance, you're doing it to check a list, you're doing it because it seems popular, it's probably not what's really sparking pleasure and joy for you.
Right. And I think the other measure of it is how long does that experience last? Because if it's right when you walk out the door, it's over, versus it's
Yes.
something that stays with you for a while.
Yes.
It's changed you. It's like really
Yes.
transformed you. I think that's also a big indicator as well.
Yes. That was the other thing that I heard when I
Mhm.
was listening to you. So thank you.
Yeah.
It's that experience is actually it's not just replenishing, it's actually like deepening your own well. Like it's
Hmm.
an expansive experience.
Yeah.
You're not extracting anything from you, you're actually getting more
Hmm.
into it. And that is also like about the erotic pleasure too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I talk all the time, there's a lot of women out there having sex, but not a lot of women are having amazing sex.
No.
Like when you are having great sex, it is expansive, it is fully embodied. You're not thinking about nothing else. You are
Right.
like in full present
Hmm.
alignment, attunement with yourself, the other person, all the things. And so, whether it's the erotic pleasure or simple pleasure or the moderate, it's that expansiveness, it's that tuning in and like rooting in deeper for yourself. And like fully celebrating that that is it. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
that's why we're here. Like that's
Right.
the whole point of life, of like us being here.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that. The expansion to me is the goal. As much as exploration, as much as the experience is
Yes.
how is it growing me? How is it expanding me? How is it healing me? And I
Yes.
think even that part, the healing part, because like you said, play is liberation. I always say play is always also the gateway to healing and the transformation that we're looking for, because a lot of times going to a therapist is not the thing that people want to really kind of consider. They don't
Mhm.
want to really consider, coaching or writing in a journal or what, but people love to play. And
Yes.
that is the thing that brings your guard down and it gives you that sense of freeness that
Mhm.
can open the door for the healing that you really want and to really
Yes.
approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it.
And moving into the deeper level of
Mhm.
pleasure, the erotic side of pleasure, I am 100% with you when it says if you're not getting anything out of it, why are we here?
We here. You're pleasure. Like, why are we here? What are we doing?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, but I think the barrier there is such a mental barrier when it comes
Mhm.
to how to actually approach it be in it, expand from it, because we have so
Yes.
many horrible narratives from a
Yes.
patriarchal perspectives, and it's sometimes a matriarchal perspective. You must
Hmm.
be prim and proper, and you must always perform and
Hmm.
prove that you are not a whore,
Hmm. You're
whatever,
not hot. You're not fast. You're not a
a
Jezebel.
tart.
You're not
Yeah,
loose.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
and so we miss out on such a deep experience because
Yes.
so talk a little bit more about that and just how and for those who have experienced abuse, how they can get into the space where they can start to embody this form of pleasure.
I just affirm everything that you said, right? That there's a lot of systems that benefit from us being disconnected from our erotic and sexual pleasure, right? Because an erotically liberated, sexually liberated Black woman is a woman that knows herself, knows her worth, knows how
Mhm.
to advocate for herself, values pleasure. That's hard to contain. That's hard to
Yeah.
get somebody to compromise on a whole lot of other things, right?
Right.
And so I do think there's multiple systems that benefit from us not having full access to our erotic power. And
Hmm.
part of how that is policed is by even limiting our ability to talk about it, to be seen as valuable and whole and worthy if we want to explore it, right? And so a lot of women do sort of get stuck or underdeveloped around their own
Hmm.
sense of pleasure and erotic pleasure because they've kind of done they've checked the boxes, they've done the right things, they've done enough, and at some point, especially for women that are partnered, the rubber sort of hits the road, right? And so it can start to cause challenges in intimacy, emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, all the things, because there's a level of disconnect that is happening.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
oftentimes it's because they haven't had the opportunity to fully explore their own bodies. They haven't engaged in self pleasure. They don't know the things that turn them on. And
Hmm.
if they do, they don't feel safe, or they don't know how to advocate with their partners, or maybe their partners aren't responsive and then they don't know how to move beyond that. And
Hmm.
so I think a lot of women, unfortunately, end up having mediocre sex at best.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing is, like, if it's not really good, then you're not interested in doing more, which means
Right.
you sort of stay in this loop, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so a lot of the work that I do with my client. And the reason why I always say my practice is on relational and sexual wellness is because you can go to therapy and do a lot of really great healing work, and your therapist may never ask you about your erotic life, never ask you about your sexual life, nothing. Like,
Hmm.
it just
Hmm.
doesn't come up. And so I like to name it from the beginning, right? Like, this is a space where we get to explore that. And that might not even be the emphasis for everybody,
Right.
but the door is open. And you know, it's a non judgmental, sex positive space to be able to talk about those things. And
Beautiful.
the other, so many women that are sexual trauma survivors, that
Mhm.
like sexual trauma is so commonplace. We act like it's not, but it is so commonplace. And a lot of times, what I find with my clients is even if they have not experienced trauma, I have strong suspicions that their mothers have, because
Mhm.
their mothers have been silenced, or like their mothers don't even talk to them about their menstrual cycle or their bodies. They might not even be able to identify all the parts of their genitals. Their mother has just
Mhm.
sort of like been really silenced, kind of limited to religion or just things we don't talk about.
Right.
And I usually find it's because they have had some sort of traumatic experience. They've had something go wrong with them around their
Mhm.
bodies as women, their sexuality as women. And so they're not able to help their own daughters move forward with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it is, I think I've, in my family, I know for sure in my family there has been a vast history. In a
Yes.
friend's family, like generational
Yes.
history of
Yes.
abuse and assault, etc. And it breaks my heart because all those women have never really had the pleasure of
Yes.
experiencing full body um pleasure, eroticism, orgasm, or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
And because first they've been ashamed, there's so
Yes.
much shame around it. And
Mm-hmm.
then the self-sacrificing for another person's, mainly your
Mm-hmm.
partner's pleasure versus your
Yes.
own.
Yes.
And the number of women who say they've never had an orgasm is mind-boggling. I
It's
can't even,
mind-boggling to
I
me.
can't, I cannot think.
I'm grateful to not be in that number. Yes, I'm so grateful to not be in that number. And the other piece that you had asked and that I want to make sure to address, I'm going to always advocate for therapy and obviously
Mhm,
the right therapist for you, right? Not
mhm,
every therapist is the right therapist for you. And there's a whole process of trying to find that person. And I always advocate for that. Therapy is not a monolith, and therapists
mhm,
are not all the same, right? But I'm a strong advocate for therapy, especially around any trauma, but especially around sexual trauma. If that is not a choice for you or accessible to you, the one thing that I would like people to honor is listening to your body and honoring your body's needs. So
mhm,
even when we're doing therapeutic work around sexual trauma, the belief is you go as fast, as intense, and as deep as the place of safety. And
mhm,
if the place of safety is like with the lights off and I'm still got some of my clothes on, it's better for you to engage your body in that way so you could be
mhm,
safe and fully present in your body than to
mhm.
violate your own boundaries, re traumatize yourself by trying to perform in a way for your partner, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If I could just get women to even acknowledge that for themselves
Mhm,
and to do the work to rebuild their own sense of safety in their bodies. So
mhm,
again, whether you're doing that with a therapist or not, even with a quality trained therapist, you're still going to do the work with reconnecting with feeling safe and
mhm,
reclaiming your own sense of safety in your body
mhm,
and really being intentional and relentlessly repetitive about distinguishing sexual exploitation, someone using their power over you in a sexual way versus
mhm,
your experience of sex as a sexual being, right?
mhm,
And a
mhm,
recognition that that can be really muddled and confused. And so when you are experiencing those moments where your body is saying stop, or when you are feeling the need to dissociate, or you're feeling the need to tighten up, or you're feeling fear, whatever those signals are for you, then
mhm.
that is your boundary. And
Okay.
that is your place to say, slow down
Mhm.
and get back to the place of safety so that you can experience joy, pleasure, connection in a way that you are fully embodied.
Okay. I love that. And I think it's, like you said, it's incremental, step by step. This is not a rushing, you can't rush this experience because it took years for you to get here. It took
Yes.
years for this to even be ingrained, I think, and us for you to identify with that
Yes.
experience
Yes.
and to create a new identity.
One last thing I'll say is I always say all pleasure is good pleasure, right?
Mhm.
It is a much better proposition for you to have fully embodied pleasure, even if it doesn't look like what you think your sex life should look like, right? That might
Mhm.
not be penetration, but to have fully embodied pleasure is always a win. You're not losing out on anything, right? And
Mhm.
even if you don't have sexual trauma history, I always especially encourage us to not get so focused on orgasm, not get so
Right.
focused on penetration, right? Like the pleasure is the experience, right?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
pleasure is being embodied and having that connection with the other person. Like that,
Mhm.
I wish there was also a space for us where we can acknowledge that there's a level of sacredness without
Yes.
having it be serious, right? Like you don't have to be fully committed and married to honor that you're actually experiencing something with another person that is unique. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
you're
Absolutely.
choosing to explore and experience your body in its most vulnerable way with someone else. And
Mhm.
so we can honor that that's significant without like becoming so serious and restrictive and rigid about it. I want us to also get to that place. We could be playful and
Yes.
joyful, frivolous, whimsy, like all of those things and still experience pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I mean, this conversation is, I think, so liberating, for the women who, for me, for the women who's listening to it, because I
Yeah.
know that it's a long time coming. We
Yes.
we have not had the pleasure of play of being fully embodied because we're
Yes.
always thinking about other people, what they want, what they think, how they're going to feel, and instead
Yes.
of not allowing that for ourselves. And I found for me, just this year, end of last year and this year has been liberating time for me because learned about womb healing. I learned
Mm.
about how important it is to reconnect with your womb,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
fully embodied, and how that, I mean, when I tell you that transformed so much for me, it really just opened up so much for me. And I think even that conversation is like how much we carry within our bodies
Yes.
that we have to decide. We have to decide this is what we want. We want a new experience, new identity, new everything, and we have to
Hmm.
get to the root of it so
Hmm.
that we can have the full spectrum of pleasure.
And we benefit everybody too when we do that. Like,
Right.
it really is the inverse. Like when
Hmm.
we are at our fullness, we're gonna bring people along regardless. Like that is just who we
Absolutely.
are in our nature. So we might as well do it and have a good time.
That part for sure. This has been such an amazing conversation. I've
Thank
loved every
you.
minute of it. I know there's so much more we could cover, but we
Yes.
got to remember people's attention spans.
I know that I enjoy it. I never get tired of talking about this. As many places and spaces as I can have these conversations with other Black women, the better off I know that we all are. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And tell us, I know you have a journal, so tell us
Yes.
about your journal and about any other programs and how we can connect with you online.
Absolutely. So I have a journal right there, The
Mhm.
Pleasure Pursuit. So it's a journal and planner for women who need some help with that accountability of like honoring. I do want to start to look at this pleasure thing more,
Mhm.
but I need a sort of structure and support to help me do that because I've been
Sure.
saying I'm going to do it for years and it hasn't happened. And
Mhm.
so it's a guided way for you to think about how you want to experience pleasure in your life, to plan it out for the week. And then it has self reflection questions
Mhm.
at the end of each week. And so the journal is for a year. There's 52 weeks in there. I give you some suggestions about different ways you can engage erotic pleasures, simple pleasures, access to a guided meditation that I have around getting embodied for yourself. And it's available for sale on my website. You can find me on all social media platforms at my website at drnikkiknows.com, DRNIKKIKNOWS.com. And I am offering individual therapy right now, as well as group therapy with my framework, The Sanctuary, where we talk about pleasure, self compassion, authenticity, and intimacy. Those are all the different ways you can work with me. If you're interested, schedule a consultation, just reach out, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to
Mhm.
connect with you.
Thank you, Dr. Nikki, for being here.
Yes.
I think the last thing that I want to get across is that pleasure is permission based, and you have to give yourself permission
Mm-hmm.
to experience it.
Yes. Go for it.
Yes.
You are the boss of
Mhm.
you. So give yourself permission to
Yes,
experience pleasure.
for sure. Thank
Mm.
you all for listening to this episode of the Self Care Oasis podcast. You absolutely deserve to experience pleasure. You have permission to experience pleasure, and you must take the power back for your pleasure so that you are not walking around feeling like you are stuck and stagnant in this life. Life is here for your joy and for your experience. The world was made for you. So thank you again for listening. Connect with us on social media. All the links will be in the description below. And definitely connect with Dr. Nikki so that you can begin your journey of pleasure-filled life. And I love you. I hope that you come back again for the next episode. Take care.